Extreme poverty, conflict, climate change and coups have been some of the big themes at this year's UN General Assembly. Now this comes amid growing calls for solidarity to ensure that the targets around the Sustainable Development Goals are met. The Assembly also heard that $50 billion a year is lost by the continent due to illicit financial flows. Let's now get some analysis and speak to Dr Kingsley Makhubela, Director at RiskRecon. Thank you so much, Dr Makhubela, for your time. Tonight we're asking our viewers a question about the relevance of the UN, particularly to South Africans, and it will be interesting to hear what your take is.
Good evening, Bongiwe, and what a pleasure to talk to you. Like any other entity, the United Nations needs to remain relevant. And for the United Nations to remain relevant, they need to reform and it should be up to date with the current challenges of the world. A failure to do that, of course, will render the United Nations obsolete, and we will not have trust in the United Nations as an institution. And I think the question that you're raising, it's pertinent to viewers. It will be very interesting to hear what viewers say, because the United Nations cannot become an exception, refusing to reform. It still reflects the post-Second World War dynamics. It hasn't factored in new powers that have emerged, independent states that have emerged, and the new challenges of the world.
And especially some of the viewers tonight touching on that very subject. But yesterday we even heard from President Cyril Ramaphosa, for example, saying that this House majority has got men, and issues around gender equality are also going to be important if there's going to be progress that is made in that regard. And more women need to be in the room to talk about issues that affect them.
Absolutely. The United Nations has a different mechanism to really look at the gender balance and gender equity. But there's nothing that happens. Even if you look at the Secretariat of the United Nations, the top echelons of the UN are occupied by males. So there's a need for serious change and really to factor the dynamics of the current global situation. A lot of men are the ones who are involved in conflict, and women are not involved in conflict. And you don't see women in conflict resolution. And the Secretary General, when he was here, he really did mention that there's a need to streamline gender issues and to ensure that women take effective role in the resolution of conflicts around the world. And I hope this is going to happen.
And there were some, big, bold statements, one would say, from heads of state as we were listening that were being made, particularly when you think about what is happening in the continent of Africa, for example, around the issue of climate change. I wonder if those who need to be listening were in the room, and are they really listening?
The climate change issue, Bongiwe, it's always a very challenging issue. In Copenhagen, during the COP17, there was a principle accepted of a common but differentiated responsibilities, meaning that those who have moved up the echelon for development using fossil fuel and so on have to take more responsibilities in terms of their emission, whilst allowing those who are coming up the ladder. But you're not seeing this happening. People are expecting developing countries and poor countries really to do more. One Indian activist actually put it very well. He said, poor people are only concerned about today. Don't go and tell them about the future of the globe. Tell them about the challenges today, because really their challenge is putting food daily on their table. It's not looking at the future. And unless we address these issues, it's going to be a huge challenge.
And I wonder, what does it tell us then if we're still hearing about billions of dollars being lost due to illicit, financial flows? This is something that has been a problem for the continent for decades now. And I wonder, what does it tell us that we're still sitting here and still hearing about these billions as you juxtapose it with issues of extreme hunger around the continent as well in the world?
The issues of illicit capital flow. I know President Mbeki is also in the UN. He's been spearheading this process from the African perspective. But it's not only that. Africa has become a hunting ground for people to really loot the resources and finances of the continent. I mean, in the last few weeks, Bongiwe, we've been reading here about how South Africa was overcharged by pharmaceutical companies. I mean, we are told we've been charged close to 30% more than the rich countries, the developed north. Why is this happening? Those are issues that we need to tackle. And I'd hope when the president was addressing business in New York the other day, that you raise this issue sharply, because most of these huge pharmaceutical companies are US-based. And literally they are reaping developing countries. If they are doing that to South Africa, I wonder what they are doing more to other countries. Our government has been refusing to release details of the procurement. Until they came out, we started to learn about how we've been ripped off. And I think the president should really articulate a repatriation of some of this money that we need to meet the SDGs. We're not going to meet the SDGs as long as people keep on ripping us off.
And definitely, especially when you think also about the conflict and even what he had to say even yesterday, that people are spending trillions on wars, but very little on uplifting the lives of people. So certainly wanting to know what becomes the tangible actions that we see following from henceforth. But Dr. Makhubela, let me thank you for your time. That was Dr. Kingsley Makhubela, Director at RiskRecon. And we hope then to have this conversation again, because there's lots of things to unpack, particularly when you look at what has been said in the UN General Assembly.